I know it's April Fool's Day, or about to be. But at Bankadelic, just like some people say, it's Christmas every day, it's April Fool's Day every day. And so, I got a dad joke for you. How do you know when a dad joke is grown up? Easy. When it's apparent. Get it? Anywho, enough of that silly stuff. It's April Fool's Day, Bankadelic style, with 3. Yeah, baby. 3 incredible guests. Lisa Pent, CEO of Pent Edge. Chris Poor, Vice President, Strategic Solutions at Quinte Financial. And Preetha Pulasani, CEO of Deep Target. Together, they will assail the critical questions that banking faces in 2026, and they will try not to laugh at me. We will also have some appearances on the show by some fine folks from the Bankadelic troupe, our stock players. They'll probably barge onto stage when they are least welcome to do so, but hey, not my monkey, not my circus. Well, then again, I guess it is my circus. But anyway, let the animals do what they will. And in the meantime, let's get on with the show. No jokes allowed. This podcast host is enough of a joke. Yeah. So, without any further ado, or I don't care, but I do care. I care deeply. What can I say? I'm an April Fool. Let's get down to business here and introduce our 3 guests. We'll go in alphabetical order, one at a time. Have you tell the audience a little bit about yourselves, your company, and answer this icebreaker question. What was the weirdest, best, or worst April Fool's prank played on you or someone that you know? And Lisa Pent, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Lou. I am thrilled to be here today. My name is Lisa Pent. I am the CEO of Pent Edge, and we are a company, a fintech, built around AI with guardrails for community banks and credit unions. In terms of April Fools, coincidentally, I officially launched this company, Pent Edge, on April 1st of 2025. So depending on who you ask, that's either the best prank I ever pulled or the best decision I ever made. So here we are a year later, Lou, with a newly launched AI governance product called AIMS, which is an AI monitoring system that's getting a lot of attention. I'm going to go with best decision.
Yeah, and you know what? I am going to roundly second that, and here's why. Because I, too, had a hiring announcement on April 1st. After doing a tryout with the Chicago Tribune, they hired me officially on April 1st. They gave me the news. I didn't expect this. I called my then girlfriend, who is now my wife, and said, Amy, guess what? The Chicago Tribune hired me. And I hear a loud click on the other end of the phone. I call her back. I said, no, really, I got hired. And she's like, please don't try my patience. Click. Ha, 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 April Fools. I had to call her back a third time and say, no, this is really for real. I know it's April 1st, but I got hired. It was my first full-time job in journalism. I stayed there 16 years, married Amy along the way. So even though April Fools is a funny holiday for many, for me, it was a celebratory occasion. So, Lisa, I'm right there with you in terms of good news and working world news. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, tough to follow that, April Fools, but glad to be here. Chris Porum, Vice President of Strategic Solutions with Quinte Financial Technologies. What we do really is to provide automation at scale for banks, credit unions, fintechs, QSOs. And when we think about Quinte, there are really 2 ways of which we serve our partners. We have the product side of the house, which is where I primarily focus. And what that is a platform called Case Hub. It is an orchestration enterprise case management solution. Conversely, on the other side of the house is our service desk, really focusing on the more complex things that really let your staff shine at what they do. And we take care of the back end administrative pieces there. In terms of April Fools, this one was actually probably one of the tougher questions I've had in the past year. To keep it family friendly here, back in high school, actually, we had a teacher that was very rigid, very serious. Her name was actually Miss English. And we walked into class and we were all handed like 5 or 6 pages of what was supposed to be a test. None of us knew about it. She played a very, very good poker face. And after about 5 or so minutes of everybody getting this test, she, with a nice smile on her face, said, "April Fools, just kidding, we're going to watch a movie today." At the time, I didn't really think that that was that great, but looking back, that may be one of the best that I've ever been a part of. So,
Wow, we've got a theme going on here. And Chris, I hate to break it to you, but if you've still got that test, you've got about 5 minutes to finish up. And I'm going to be waiting.
school never really was my thing. So, I'll get back to you on that when I do, but don't hold your breath on it.
I tried, didn't I? And last but certainly not least, in fact, we have an award at Bankadelic named after you, Preetha. You know this, the Preetha Pulasani Vegan Leather Purse Award for the worst gift ever handed out at a holiday. I still love that story. It's one of my all-time favorites. Preetha, you're up.
Hi, Lou. It is great to be here again. And I'm, as you know, a huge fan of the podcast because you always find a way to make the serious world of banking entertaining
Ha!
and colorful. And that's why this April Fool's episode just fits right in with your brand. I'm Preetha Pulusani, CEO of Deep Target. At Deep Target, we help financial institutions stop fooling themselves with static, boring marketing. We provide a specialized activation stack that takes all that complex account holder data and turns it into highly personalized one-to-one digital experiences in real time. Essentially, we make sure that when someone opens their banking app, they see something that actually matters to their life, not just a generic ad. And we believe that high tech should actually lead to high touch. And we're really on a mission to prove that personalized digital engagement is the best way to drive real human connection. As far as an April Fool's prank, although I have some pranks played on me, I borrowed this one from my daughter-in-law who was telling me about it. It's a fun prank from her work environment. She works at a fairly large corporate office. And she said that last year on April 1st, mind you, their HR team sent out an urgent beta test email saying that, everybody was talking about AI. So this said that to improve their global synergy, quote unquote, the company was implementing an AI-driven sentiment monitor on all their Zoom calls. And the memo said that if the AI detected a negative or neutral tone, it would automatically trigger a mandatory mood lift, which meant their screen would turn bright pink and they would start playing Walking on Sunshine until they smiled for 10 seconds. Sorry, I just thought it was hilarious. And then she said they had some senior employees spend the whole morning talking in these high-pitched, terrifyingly cheerful voices, terrified that the pink screen of death was going to hit them at any time.
Oh, no.
They were relieved and embarrassed when they realized it was a prank. So I thought that was one of the funnest pranks I've heard of.
Well, Preetha, I didn't want to say anything, but hold on. I'm going to hit a few keys here. I'm walking on sunshine. Whoa! We've installed that same device here, and I have to tell you, it's extremely ineffective. Great.
Not all HR departments are that fun, by the way.
Johnny the Pig, everybody, and thanks for allowing me. What am I talking about, allowing me? It's your privilege to have me on this April Fool's show. Now, what I do is, well, can't get into it. We'll talk about that some other time. In terms of the worst April Fool's gag I was ever a part of, it did directly affect me. Boo Boo Deuce, he thought he was a freaking wise guy. I guess he is a wise guy, but I mean the other kind. He shows up at my door one day. He's like,
Yes, this is Agent Boo Boo from the FBI. We are here to see Johnny the Pig.
I'm like, get the hell out of here. This is a really bad joke. But then he takes out these handcuffs and he slaps them on me. I'm like, yo! Ahoy! Get those freaking handcuffs off of me. And then he ties a blindfold around me. He has two of his goons haul me out to a paddy wagon and they shove me inside and they drive me like 5 miles away. And I'm like saying, what the hell is going on here? Where's my handlers? And then they get me out and take the blindfold off, and I'm in this bar with dancing girls and slot machines, and they're playing Sinatra, and I gotta tell you, wow, that was a great joke. Although I'm sorry to say, nobody heard from Boo Boo for about 18 months. That's a long story, probably good for another podcast. It doesn't have anything to do with that cement truck in the back of the Bankadelic bunker, does it? I told you to shut the hell up. Okay, moving right along here. We're going to get into the thick of things, the thick of thick things, by the way, and take a look at banking through the lens of April Fools, but not always in a foolish way, just to take a look at what banking may be doing in terms of the disconnect, what it thinks about itself, what the industry upholds versus what is true. So this one's on a happier note, the walking on sunshine question, you might say. In terms of positive outcome, what would you say was the one prediction the naysayers made for 2026 that turned out to be foolish? And the floor is open.
Hey, it's Lisa from PentEdge. You know, the prediction that AI governance was a big bank problem and everyone else could sit on the sidelines for a while definitely turned out to be foolish. I don't think anybody anticipated how quickly the regulatory posture was going to shift. You know, banks assumed that they had a comfortable runway to figure this out, and that runway was a lot shorter than advertised.
Hi, this is Quinte from Deep Target. You know, I think about the naysayers and what they predicted, and I'm thinking way back. And they thought that by this time, when everything was going digital, by 2026 or around this time, that the financial services ghost town would be in full effect. In other words, physical branches would be boarded up, human bankers would be replaced by holograms or chatbots or machines of some other type that only understand, a few things. But instead of tech replacing humans, I think it's, in a way, really put a lot of value on the relationship side of banking. We found that when you use AI and data to deliver the right insight at the right moment in a digital channel, you don't just get a click, you get a thank you. Branches haven't died. They've evolved into financial wellness hubs. People are coming in not because they have to deposit a check, for example, but because they want to have a complex conversation about their future. So I think what 2026 has shown us is the high-tech, high-touch balance isn't a myth. The foolish part was thinking that customers only wanted to talk to a machine. What they actually wanted was the ease of using the machine whenever and wherever they were, but having access and ability to talk to a person who actually knows their name for deeper, high-value conversations when they needed those. So in a way, the digital platforms, you can always think of them as becoming the front porch of the branch, and digital The naysayers thought digital would kill the relationship, but we are not seeing that. We found that digital can enhance the human experience and the relationship with the banks.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I love the analogy of the front porch. And I have to wonder if we are heading towards a moment in time where you might call it a convergence, right? Where the digital and the personal are so intertwined that they work in this great harmony, and customers are getting the friction-free stuff along with the, hey, I want to sit down and have a long talk type relationship. So really well put.
Yeah, I think those are both great things. This is Chris from Quinte. One thing that strikes me, reading so many different posts and articles and what have you throughout last year was that Bitcoin and stable coins and tokenization were going to be the only way that consumers were spending things. And as far as I know, from what I can tell, cash is still pretty much the king. It's easy. I don't think it's going away anywhere. So I think that for everyone that thought that, cash was going to go away and no longer be something that you had and used, to me was kind of foolish, right? So while I think there's certainly a lot of, progress and there's a lot of potential with tokenization and Bitcoin and all those different things, cash to me is always something that will have a heavy presence no matter what's going on in the industry.
Love it, Chris. NCR Atleos released a report in October talking about utility ATM networks. And one of the things they noted is that cash is still very much used. We forget that in a lot of parts of the country, we may not see people having access to mobile technology, or they may walk into a store and the merchant doesn't like to front for the fees. Do you have cash on hand? I think there's even something moving through Congress right now where they're talking about making it mandatory that all merchants have to make a provision for cash in some way, shape, or form. So could not agree more.
Wellington Big Bucks here, and I can't even begin to tell you how unspeakably foolish it was that my family office predicted I would only make $1.6 billion this year, and I tried to tell them that I held leveraged positions in several offshore companies and was able to effectively leverage loans and venture capital against an investment in a chain of pizza stores run by my trusty sidekick, the pizza delivery boy.
Yeah, Worthington, thanks for putting me in business. I mean, this is incredible. I don't know. I really don't want to be a capitalist. I just want a few slices of pepperoni to bring home now and then.
So anyway, they were far off the mark, and I made $2.7 billion plus, thanks to my delivery boy pal, a lifetime supply of goat meat and feta cheese pizza with a side of taro root fries. No, I did say for life, right? For life.
Wow, Worthington, well put.
Okay, moving right along then. We also have this reverse scenario where it happens every year. Something is supposed to materialize, happen, come up, and doesn't quite get there, right? So I'm wondering if you have any pertinent observations in terms of what ways financial services has been fooled in 2026 and what's it going to take to make it right?
This is Preeta from Deep Target again. And so this is my take on this foolish reality. And it's something very relevant in my world and what we do. And I call these the segmentation and data lake traps. We've been fooled into thinking that segmentation is the same thing as personalization. For years, banks have been high-fiving over these broad demographics, grouping people by age or zip code or some other characteristic while calling it a strategy. But as we've seen in 2026, segmentation is a step in the journey, but not the ultimate solution. And similarly, we've also been fooled by the data lake myth, the idea that we just dump all of our data into one giant lake and insights will magically appear. But instead, I think many banks, they actually ended up with a data swamp. The information continued to be siloed. We see this all the time, where the mortgage department doesn't necessarily talk to the credit card department, leaving the customer feeling like a stranger every time they switch tabs in the app. So I think to stop being fooled, we have to move from just having those insights to actual action, taking action. And it's not really about just all the data that you have, it's about activating it. What is the infrastructure that lets a bank act in the milliseconds between when a customer opens the banking app and seeing the screen and being presented with something that is relevant and is personalized and engages them?
Wow, I've never heard that before, Preetha. The data lake actually being the data swamp. That's a fabulous analogy.
Hey, Lisa here from Pent Edge. I think there's two ways. First, I think a lot of institutions discovered that having an AI policy on paper is not the same thing as having a governance program in place. Having a document like that on a shared drive is a starting point, but examiners are looking for a lot more. And secondly, I think a lot of technology got sold, over the last year or so as AI powered without having any accompanying documentation that banks and credit unions need. And making it right really means going back, through every AI tool in an institution and asking harder questions systematically about what kind of structure you have in place for governance around that. So those are the two that I see, Lou.
Yeah, I love that answer because documentation, accreditation, right? Not necessarily popular words for people who have tech mindsets. In fact, the really incredible, but also a bit alarming expression I always heard from the tech world was ready, fire, aim, right? Just get it out there, move. But banking's a different animal, right? We have to make sure that those P's and Q's are in place. And it may be the notion that in some ways AI is running so fast, it is running in a circle, hasn't caught up to where banking needs to be, and we've got to rethink that a bit. So love that answer.
This is Chris from Quinte. I think one of the big things was getting fooled into thinking that like this notion of going digital or digital transformation was sort of like the finish line, right? Because it's pretty easy to understand that just having a fancy mobile app and a lot of APIs, that doesn't really necessarily equal digital certainty, if you will, right? And separately from that, I think another big piece was that a lot of FIs went out thinking that innovation meant just partnering with logos, right? And not really owning or thinking about the outcomes, right? So when we're thinking specifically about AI, it was like we've got to have an AI strategy. Kind of our ethos really is you need to have a strategy that enables AI to produce the outcomes and not just an AI strategy, because press releases and things like that, they're great, but they're not P&L, and integrations that are kind of like half done. And to Preetha's point, data stuck in these silos ultimately kind of leaves this customer experience unchanged, even though there was all this talk of digital strategy and transformation and AI strategy, when at the end of the day, you've really got to have a strategy that enables all of that to produce the outputs and outcomes that really do set your institution apart from the others.
Bullseye. The strategy for AI versus the AI strategy. And there is always this threat, and it repeats itself every generation or so, that the shiny new toy comes out, got to get it, got to put it in place, and then it's, what do we do with it exactly? What's our strategy for the toy? Whereas the really wise way of thinking, I love the way you put it, is having a strategy for AI. Okay, before we bring this thing in, what are we going to do with it? How is it going to affect P&L? So, spot on answer.
Howdy. This is Elmo the Gentleman Farmer. I heard a couple of really fascinating tidbits there. Data swamp, well, no, the data the swamp that I saw in the back of the barn by the alfalfa sprouts, maybe it's been about a month or two, and couldn't tell you. There wasn't nothing in the almanac about it, but I just I dealt with it, and my buddy Jehoshaphat over at the neighboring farm helped me pump it out. In times of things stuck in silos, I know a lot about that because there's been 3 years worth of supply of husks piling up out there, and can't get the husk out. How do you get any feed corn?
Good point, Elmo.
Out of the haystack and back into substantive matters. We are not hayseed on this podcast. We're heading off into the sunset here, and there is a need to take a look at what's to come. This has been a topsy-turvy year for the economy, for the stock market, M&As. You hear a lot of noise about how big a year it's going to be. No, wait, they're going to pull back a bit with these new offerings. And banking, if not directly involved in all of that, is certainly affected by that. And then, of course, we have AI, right? So would love to know that as we look forward to the end of the year, what kind of promising breakthrough could give banks and credit unions the last laugh?
Hey, Lou, it's Lisa from Pentedge. I'm going to jump in because you were touching on AI. The development that I'm the most excited about, and it's already underway, AI can explain itself, right? So not just an output, but a clear audit trail of why a decision was made, what data informed it, and what guardrails were in place. And I believe the institutions that take advantage of that built-in audit trail are going to be in a very strong position by year end and hopefully have a good laugh about how easy it was.
Yeah, let's hope, because that's what it's all about. The technology can make things easier. And if you got that audit trail, then hopefully if all the information going in is solid, then what comes out is rock solid as well.
Lou, this is Preetha from Deep Target, and I looked at it from the lens of what we do, right? And the breakthrough that I believe will give, the financial services industry the last laugh isn't just, AI and the AI strategy. I really thought that was well put by Chris. I think of it as a move from reactive banking to anticipatory banking. For the longest time, it was thought that, big tech would eat our lunch in terms of banking because they had better apps, right? But we're seeing breakthroughs in having that real-time activation stack. And this is the engine that will allow a local credit union or a community bank to know what an account holder needs before they even ask for it. And before you say that's creepy, I think it's important to know that big tech may have data, but banks have trust and regulated security. So when we layer insights and one-to-one personalization over that foundation of trust, we create a moat that a social media company or a generic tech simply can't cross, right? We're able to anticipate, become a financial mind reader of sorts when we use AI to anticipate a life milestone or provide a solution in the milliseconds that matter. We can stop as financial institutions being a place where people just keep their money and start being that partner that they can't live without. And I think especially the local community institutions, that's how they win the AI arms race, by using high tech to deliver high touch at a scale we never thought possible.
Yeah. What computer, no matter how super duper powered it is, can go out to coffee with you or sit down and share a meal or really appreciate and absorb the story that you have about how your finances have changed over the last few months, knows that you're pregnant, knows that you're moving into a home and that your financial picture is going to change, not just in terms of, oh, I need a mortgage, but comprehensively. These are things that humans can do and that no computer I know of can do.
Just adding on to that, there's some balancing there that is going to be needed in the relationship building, right? You're going to use both digital and human touch points to have those relationships with your account holders.
Yeah, Lou, this is Chris with Quint. When I'm thinking about promising breakthroughs that will, give these institutions the last laugh, to me, those that understand and implement orchestration across their stack, right? Because you can have, a litany of AI, you can have all these workflows and automations that are happening behind the scenes. But if you're not treating AI and identity as your core infrastructure and you don't have these tighter feedback loops, it becomes really just another messy, bolted on tech stack, right? And so to me, those that learn how to truly implement the solutions that can orchestrate the entire stack are those that are going to really, I guess, have that last laugh, right? It doesn't take an army of Gartner folks or Boston consulting groups to come in and tell you that you've got to have this harmonious synchrony of things going on behind the scenes. Think of it as simple as a composer with a symphony, right? The composer lets the percussion know when they're to be a part of it. They let the horns know when to go. But without that composer or that conductor, then it really is all for naught. So when we think about how we apply that in terms of orchestration in your tech stack, the folks that figure that out the fastest are going to be the ones that separate themselves by potentially years, because it's something that I don't think gets enough input or highlighted. Everything, again, it's AI this, AI that, right? But orchestrated AI and automation is what's really going to win the game.
Yeah, we've had a lot of great analogies, the example of the composer and the symphony. I have to say, though, that sort of excludes me because I don't know if there's a place for a kazoo player in there.
Sure there is. Every percussion section needs a kazoo, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe I will have a part 2 of this podcast, 30 minutes of my kazoo concerto in flat. So that's great.
Okay, you grunts. This is Sarge, the weight trainer for Barbell Bank. And when I look at the 4 of you, I see a bunch of ragtag, namby-pamby, nincompoop, apathetic cast-offs from out-of-shape banking central. If FinTech doesn't eat you for lunch, I will. Carlozo, I want to see some squats. Or hit the pull-up bar. Polisani, 6 reps of 200-pound bench presses. And for you, Pent, push-ups.
Wow, Sarge, incredible. How many push-ups did I do?
Fools from the Bankadelic players notwithstanding, some incredible insights today on the show. We do try to have fun on this podcast. I do not take myself seriously, but we take the issue seriously. And to do that, we need fantastic guests. So wonderful you could make time from busy schedules to be here and tolerate my fooling around and also put stuff out on the table that's no fooling and lots of wisdom. So thanks again for being on the April Fool's Day episode.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks, Lou.
Thank you, Lou. Another fun podcast.
And so 23 skidoo to another April Fool's Day podcast. I want to once again thank our guests on the show. Lisa Pent, CEO of Pent Edge. Chris Poor, Vice President of Strategic Solutions at Quinte Financial. And Preetha Pulasani, CEO at Deep Target. How else you gonna counteract the foolishness of yours truly? You need great guests. Thanks so much for being on the show. Our producer in Chicago is Ken Montone. Special thanks to our sponsors of the podcast, the incredible William Mills Agency, Lemonade LXP, and Talking Biz News, a division of Vested LLC. Our Bankadelic consigliere, Prince of Men, King of Phone Tag, Rob Gaynor.
Dude, I totally got into the show.
A special thanks to our podcast mates over in London, to be precise, Henley-on-Thames and Reading in the UK. Dave Wallace and Dharmesh Mistry, the hosts of Dave and Dharm Demystify.
Fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're talking podcast fools, well, somebody's got to keep me in line. Otherwise, I might just run off with the show and keep cracking more dad jokes. For example, the duck walks into a pharmacy and says, "Give me some chapstick and put it on my bill." But ladies and gentlemen, there she is, standing at the top of Mount Bankadelic, the Tsarina of special episode podcasts, the one, the only, the incredible, the undefeated, the exceptional, outstanding in her field while Lou is standing in his, Catherine Laws.
We love you, Catherine!
And check it out. In the top 5 of all AI and banking shows. This according to Million Podcasts. That's us, Bankadelic. What next? Well, you'll have to tune in and find out. No fooling. Lou Carlozo, your host, on behalf of the Bankadelic team and the Bankadelic players.
Well, yeah, thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, thank you.
I want to see some more push-ups.
So long.
Bankadelic is a production of NMD Plus, London and Chicago.
How do you know when a dad joke is grown up? Easy. When it's apparent. Get it?